So today we're going to look at how to create the river problem where you have three sides on a fence and you want to maximize the area by building it on a river. So the first thing we want to do is create a GeoGebra window. Create a GeoGebra window. And if you don't have GeoGebra already running, you can just click on the icon, which looks like this. So let's actually insert the problem. So you click on the text and click anywhere on the screen. And then we're just going to type in the problem. And I actually hit enter, so that way it'll actually go to the next line instead of just creating one long string. So when you hit enter, it just appears right here on the screen. But I'm going to go right here and I'm going to make it bold. And I'm going to make it size medium, just to make it a little bigger. We might change that later on to make it smaller. So the next thing we want is to make our variable, which is n. So let's do that. So to make a slider, which is our variable or unknown, you click here, you click on slider, you click anywhere on the screen. And I know I'm going to want it to be an integer, so I just do between 1 and 30, and I hit OK, and it just makes it for me. Now if you want to drag it, you are going to right click it and move it, and then you are able to drag it. If you're working on a trackpad, mine is 2 fingers click for the Mac. Yours might be in the bottom right, or on the mouse be the right hand. So now if you move this, you can see the number moves. So the next thing we want to do is we want to make this polygon. So we're just going to start with the coordinate 0, 0. So you just type it into the input box and there it appears. And then from there, I'm going to actually type in n, 0, and then that will change depending on this point. So that will change like that. Then I'm going to type in well, from there I want the range. So from there, I'm going to create a function that w of n is equal to just n. And we can go and we can change that later. I'm actually going to turn the function off just so we don't see it. So you can turn it on and off by clicking this button. So I'm going to do 0, comma, and then w of n. So what that does is it gives me the point. Right now it's going to make looks like it's making a square. And then I'm going to type in the point n, comma, w of n. And then I connect the dots. Make sure you return back to the original point. So now if you see I make this square. We know that's not right based on our problem. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to create that input box right here. Click on input box and you click. And then so the caption is going to be what are they going to see and enter. So I'm going to say w of n and then equals, and then I'm going to leave it alone. Now you want to link it to something, so I'm going to link it to that w of n equation that we had. So now watch, when I enter, say I enter 2, the w of n becomes 2. So here we know that we have 150 feet and we have to subtract the 2n. That's our formula. So right here, it should have worked. So you can just zoom out by scrolling. Sorry, this should have been N. No. So here we need to make this go all the way to 75. Alright, so that way we can go all the way to the 0. Now here you notice that the windows might not make sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change my window size so I can see this fence being moved in a better scale. So for instance, actually if we zoom into here, it's not so bad. Actually, we want to make N go all the way to 0. So we can zero it out. So if you move N, you can see the area changing. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get rid of my axis, but before I do that, I want to put in that river. So I'm going to make X equal 0. That'll give me this line, and I'm going to make it a little bigger, and I'm going to color it blue just to symbolize that river. So now I move N, you can see the changing. So now I'm going to get rid of the axis. So now it just looks like we have a river and a pen, like so. Now to get rid of all these unwanted letters, you click on right here on segment, and what we're going to do is we're going to right click and you're going to click on object properties. So from there we can change some cool things about each point. So if I click on, instead of clicking on each individual letter, I can just click on segment. I can go to basic, and I can go to where it says show label. I can just click that off. And what that's going to do is it's going to get rid of it. So let's do that again with the points. Let's get rid of the show object, and look, the points are gone. Now for style, I want the point size to be almost non-existent. So I took them down to here. So we're almost there. We're almost to the same point. However, there are some other things that I've included here. So I included a description about what N is. So here it's up to you if you want to do that. You can just put a text box and put that there. What I want to show you next is how to make the next window. So if we move this over here, so make sure it's in the window, hit view, you go to graphics 2. So view, graphics 2, and it creates another window over here. That's why I chose to make this a little smaller. I'm going to probably take it back down to small and move this window over here. So now what I did is I'm generating 2 windows at the same time. So if you want to put something in this window, say you want to put the point 5,5, you do that. You can then hit undo if you don't want it. Then if you want something in this window, you should click in this window, actually click, and then type it in again. See, now it's in this window. So that's one way to do that. So what I want to do is I want to graph the area of this object. Well, luckily GeoGebra actually just has, if I just type in poly1, it'll just give me the area. So I'm going to graph N, which is the our side length, comma poly1, which is the area. So if I graph that and take this back down to 0, you can see the point. There it is. Point's right here. Now what you want to do is you want to turn the trace on. So if you click on it, if you right click on it, you can just turn the trace on from here. And now as N moves, it's too big of a jump, we need to change our axis. So we know N goes from 0 to 75, and look, our ranges are over here. If we watch them, our largest range is, it looks like 2,800. So I'll make it go to 3,000. So what you want to do is you want to go to graphics by right clicking. Then for my minimum, it's 0, but I always like to go a little bit extra, so I go to -10. and then here is 75, so I'll go to 80. My y min, I'm going to make negative 10, and my maximum, we said we wanted 3,000. Let's do that. So you hit enter. Now I always like to change these two to both ways. Doesn't really matter, but it's preference. So now, you can move it a little bit and zoom out some more. So now when I move n, you can see it trace it out. So you can visually see now where the area actually maximizes. It's right up here. Now your students might ask, okay, what's that length? So again, we're going to go into that graphics property, object properties. We're going to go to these segments, and I'm actually going to show the label, but instead of letters, I'm going to show the values. Okay, now there's one of them I don't need. I don't need. I want to say it's A. We'll find out in a second when we don't show it. Yeah, A. See, I can turn it off and on. I don't really need that. So you can show now that at which values it has the maximum area. Now, we're going to do one last thing. We're going to make this part appear where if you type in something wrong, it'll tell you that your area is not correct. Or if you type it incorrect, then it is correct. So here we go. So what you want to do now is this called an if-then statement. So what we have to do is put in our things that we want to appear first. So if they do it right, we'll say great. That's the correct for the area. So this is what they're going to see if they get it correct. And if they do not get it correct, we're going to say, oops, that is not. And then we'll give a little hint. Do not forget that you do not fencing along the river. Or just something helpful. So now I've got two things. Now what this is going to do, if anyone knows about coding, it's going to be if this, then that. So we're going to say if, capital I, if into the command line. Now if w of n, and then to do equals, it's a double equal sign. And then we're going to put 150 minus 2n, because that's the formula we want. Then you put a comma, so that's if this, and then the comma represents the then. Then we're going to show text2, which is a great. So you just type in text2, hit enter. So that actually makes this thing appear over here. So it creates like an extra item. So, but that's easy to fix. We can just turn off our text2 and move this over here. So watch what happens if I enter this not that way. See how it disappears? Hit in the end, and there it is. So now let's do that again with this. But this time, we're going to go if, parentheses, w of n actually, instead of that, we're just going to modify our old statement. So we're going to go back to this and change our if statement. After the text2, you're going to hit comma, because this creates an else statement. So if w of n does not equal that, then we're going to have it type in text3. Hit OK. So there we go. So we turn off text3. Now look, if you type in 2n, hit enter, it types in the right thing. If you don't, it says, oops, that's not the correct area. So if we go back, I'm going to show you again how we did that. If you double click on our text4, it says, I'll zoom in on it a little bit. It says if w of n equals, and remember here we use a double equal sign when we typed it in, equals this correct formula, then text2 is going to appear, which is the great good job. Otherwise, which is this comma, we're going to show text3, which is our little hint that something went wrong. And that's how you create the area model. One last thing you can do that's kind of neat that students like is you can animate it, which is right here. You right click on this and hit animate, and then it just does it for you. And then a little play pause button will appear here in the bottom left portion of the screen. And that's how you make the river area problem.